Continuing our conversation, talking about raising social awareness through cultural connections, I have another one of my NCVPS coworkers, Meaghan DeRusso, and she graduated from the State University of New York College at Cortland with a degree in Spanish education and earned her master's degree in Spanish and Latin American Area Studies from American University. She currently teaches Spanish with us at NC Virtual. In addition to that, she's also an instructional leader. And she began her teaching career face-to-face, but she saw the potential of working with more students and implementing more technology into the classroom in the online world, and realized her passion for working with the students in the online setting. So we are very happy to have Meaghan with us this evening. And again, I want to thank Meaghan so much for joining us, and go ahead and turn over the microphone to you.
Hello, everybody. I am really happy to be here. And when Sarah asked me to present, I was really excited that the focus was social and emotional learning, and something that I think we do really well at NC Virtual is making those cultural connections. And so just a little bit about me that Sarah didn't mention, I started teaching for NC Virtual before it was trendy. Right before it was really popular to learn online, as we've learned over the last few years. I started working with NC Virtual almost 12 years ago. And at that time, I was teaching face-to-face. I was teaching at American University and also at a high school just outside of Washington, D.C. And I decided to venture into the online world because at the time, 12 years ago, it was sort of buzzwordy to incorporate technology into the classroom. And I feel old saying that because I'm not that old, but the opportunity presented itself for me to work at NC Virtual. And I was very hesitant at first because I like to make connections with students. I think that is the fun part of teaching. I love teaching kids. I think they're funny. I think they're fun. I've taught everybody from 4-year-olds in, immersion Spanish programs, all the way up through university med students and law students trying to learn Spanish for their programs for work. And I like to be around people. And so when this opportunity presented itself, I sort of thought, I love the idea, but am I really going to be able to connect with the students and with my colleagues? And I very quickly realized that the way North Carolina Virtual works, it is a community of students, of teachers, and I have never looked back. We have a wonderful program that allows for truly getting to know students and what makes them tick through the way that our courses are set up. So that is what I'm going to talk to you about tonight. And because I can see myself right now, I'm going to turn off my video because while I like to look at myself, I'm over it. So anyway, as we get started here, please feel free to chime into the chat box, ask any questions if you have any concerns at all. But the one thing that I, was kind of, when I started at NC Virtual, I was concerned, like I said, about connecting with students, with faculty. And while that has not been a problem, I've thought a lot about, in preparing this presentation, why was that not a problem? What was it about the way our courses are set up and the way our system works? And truthfully, right now in education, as you guys know, as we all know, and even just as a parent, I know I have elementary students. Social and emotional learning, the SEL, is all the rage right now. It's how can we as parents make sure that our students are being reached at an emotional level in their learning in their classrooms, at their schools? How can we as teachers make sure that all of the students in our classrooms are being met where they are socially, emotionally, not just learning, 2 + 2 is 4 and 6 + 2, my elementary school students, my own children, my 1st and 3rd graders, have a brand new social and emotional learning program that was brought into the school this year to help combat some of the stress that was put on the kids the last few years in their classrooms, and making sure that we're reaching kids in that way is essential. So as teachers, you're told you have to do these things. We need to meet the kids where they are socially and emotionally. And I think it's really essential and important to know and recognize that social and emotional learning is a process. It's a process, and it is multifaceted, and it's not always easy to include social and emotional learning in every lesson, in every, aspect of your courses. And I think, my own personal opinion, as both a face-to-face and virtual instructor, that it is exponentially harder to include and be aware of the social and emotional needs of students through an online platform. And I think that most of you that are online instructors would agree with me, recognizing that it's a process, and that the process includes understanding and managing emotions, setting and achieving goals, feeling and showing empathy for others. I mean, these things are much easier when you're sitting next to somebody in class and you help pick up their book bag when they drop it, or show an understanding for someone's sadness that you can feel because you're with them. Establishing and maintaining positive relationships. Reve just spoke in detail about the need to, and the way that online instructors work to establish positive relationships with students and with parents through connections, through personal interest in what's going on in your students' lives. And part of social and emotional learning is helping students to go through the process of making responsible decisions and how they get where they're going. So to do this in the online environment is more challenging than in other environments. And in the case of my presentation tonight, I am hopeful that you guys see how cultural connections in a world language environment can really help students connect with themselves and their own social and emotional growth. Because a person's perspective, although not always, is often dictated by their dominant culture. We all know this. We all have our very own dominant culture. And that dominant culture might not be the culture we were born into. It might be the culture we now live in, or it might be the culture we were born into, but we now live in and around another culture. And your dominant culture as a person is the lens you see the world through. And that's the way it is. But having an awareness of cultures besides one's own is absolutely essential in achieving a deeper understanding of one's self. So in our online world language classrooms, in our face-to-face world language classrooms, we do the very best job we can introducing students to cultures from around the world. And those cultures may be cultures we have had the opportunity to live in, to be part of, to deeply understand. They may also be cultures that, at least me as a Spanish teacher, how many Spanish speaking countries are there? How many cultures and subcultures are there? And not all of them do I feel fully, that I feel I have a full understanding of, but that's okay. And I think what's important as world language teachers is that we recognize part of our job is to share the importance of other cultures and allow students the opportunity to take that information and reflect on the cultures that they live in and come from, and learn about other places in the world as a way of helping them connect to themselves socially and emotionally, about where they're from and why they may feel the way they feel, and go through some of the questions they may have about other people and places all over the world. learning about culture is challenging. Teaching about culture is challenging. It's really fun, right? It's why many of us went into the job. There are very few world language teachers I've ever talked to that are, deeply passionate about verb conjugation or really excited about teaching the difference between preterite and imperfect. Those are sort of the things we're forced to focus on, spend most of our time dealing with, because of, standards of learning and pacing guides and all the things. But really the passion we all find is in the people that we hope our students become and learn about and enjoy the music, the foods, and all the things, right? So learning and teaching about culture involves, the practices involve patterns of social interactions, how people greet, how respect may be shown in a culture. Do you kiss on the cheek? Do you hold hands? Do you hug? Do you bow? Is it proper to use formal commands or informal commands in grammar form, or is it improper to command at all? Perspectives. Teaching perspectives is nearly impossible, right? It's more allowing students the opportunity to be exposed to different perspectives, recognizing that people have different values and beliefs and ideas, all of that being essential, integral in making and becoming aware of other people's cultures. And then, of course, the fun stuff to show in class, products, the books, the foods. We've all had those really fun cooking days in class, or the ability to showcase recipes, talking about laws and music and games, popular games and sports, right? All of these things that are created and used within the society you're teaching about, and allowing students that social awareness of saying, oh, wow, that's really similar to what we do here in the United States, or, oh, I didn't know that in China, this was really common. And it's also really common in Russia, and something that I've learned throughout my time at NC Virtual is really how we can as teachers showcase more than we may realize is possible through the use of our colleagues' knowledge and the use of all of the resources we have at our fingertips. So that's what I'm going to talk to you guys about tonight in detail, how we do it at NC Virtual. But before we do that, I would love you guys to think for just a second about how you stretch your students to learn outside of the confines of your curriculum in ways that examine their very own culture and cultural practices of the target language. This particular question came to me because I was talking to my wonderful boss, who is in charge of organizing and wrangling and all sorts of things for so many language teachers, so many world language teachers, yet she does not speak anything but English with a wonderful North Carolina accent. And when I talked to her about this presentation and about my excitement for presenting the topic and organizing my information, she said to me, well, I don't even speak a world language. I don't speak anything but English, but I have been able to share my experiences about cultures from around the world. And I feel like that's been a blessing for me. So in the chat, if you could, or anybody wants to share ways that they may do that, go out of their way. Have you had guest speakers? What have you done? Oh, how cool is this? Yes, so exactly. We've got cooking classes. That's amazing. Russian folk painting, Russian nesting dolls. That's exactly right. Looking for representation in their community, things like flags and churches, pen pals. I've done that. That's a wonderful idea. And really the connection is what I think is amazing. Seeing, okay, this is how things are done elsewhere, but in my community, we do this. And allowing for students to have pen pals is such a wonderful opportunity that I think is irreplaceable. there are actually programs that foster this type of connection with students from around the world. In the past, I've done a really cool activity where I'm sure some of you guys have heard and learned all about Guatemalan worry dolls. We actually had a partner school in Guatemala teach my students virtually how to make Guatemalan worry dolls. And so we used clothespins, and the students from Guatemala projected in my classroom, and my students following along making Guatemalan worry dolls, and recognizing that while it's a traditional Guatemalan pastime, that they can absolutely take that into their own little world. And I had students for the remainder of the school year carrying around their worry dolls whenever they took tests in all their classes, and recognizing that, sure, it's from somewhere else, but I can absolutely apply this to my life, and it has benefited me tremendously. So, there are some really cool stuff. There's some really cool stuff that you can do. Even little things like Wendy mentions here too, recognizing that what a dog represents culture to culture is not the same, seeing, right. And then taking that information to interview here, share, reflect, letting students take time to learn and then reflect is really important, especially with regard to culture. And I think that sometimes all of us get excited about teaching the material and sharing the fun, the dance, the song, the whatever it is, and don't necessarily have students take a minute, reflect, and allow for that, emotional kind of connection to the cultural information. So I'm going to come back because I do have more questions about this. I'm going to come back to the chat in just a sec. My next question is, and this is challenging, right? Do you do anything specific in your classroom to educate students to respect and appreciate other communities and use that info to function well with people from diverse backgrounds? So here we are, you've got all of this wonderful cultural information about your target language cultures. Is there any opportunity for your students to then interact with people from that culture who may be either living in the States or still living wherever the culture is dominant? This is where it's kind of next level challenging. And I think in the virtual environment, this is one of the, in my opinion, only things that may be easier in terms of creating that connection, because nowadays and with our virtual platforms, there can be very clear, true connection with, guest speakers that are in their homes, just like I am right now and you are right now, but sharing information with your students, and there doesn't need to be the change of location. So that's something that I want you guys to kind of think about. I've seen those before, a culture photo safari. I've actually seen that before. That is an outstanding idea. Can you do me a favor and type, Sebastian, kind of give a little blurb about what that is? Because that's really awesome. And it's exactly what I'm talking about. You can even just type it right into the chat. Interviewing native speakers, absolutely. And in a face-to-face classroom, depending on where you are, you may have native speakers. And if you don't have native speakers, but you have people who are native to the culture, that's also perfectly fine. I have many times, as I'm sure you have, taught students who don't feel comfortable, would never say they speak the language necessarily, but live in the language, communicate in the language because their parents or their grandparents speak the language. And that's a wonderful opportunity to allow a student the opportunity to just share about the culture. And that's what my boss was saying. My boss was saying, listen, I don't speak Spanish, I don't speak Russian, but I have traveled, I have been places, and I have enjoyed other cultures and foods and recipes and things that I love sharing with others. And so I think that's also something we can think about, including in our classes, both virtual and face-to-face. It doesn't necessarily have to be a native culture in the sense that you live deeply, always have, and identify with the culture, but you can share a tiny snippet of a tradition that your family or their family may do. So I'm going to move to the next part here, which is really where we're headed. It's absolutely essential that students preparing for success, this is my opinion, I deeply believe that it is really important that students preparing for 21st century, success, the ability to function in our world and, be successful in the workforce and in life, that they use information that use all that they're learning, right, from other communities and other cultures to truly function well with people from diverse backgrounds. That's where we're at. And so the big question is, how can we, as educators, ensure that this happens? Because that's what we have to do this for our students. And what I'm going to share with you tonight is exactly what we do at NC Virtual. 3 things: Culture Cafe, iWork sessions, and Student Research Alliance. When I come to sessions like the one you're sitting in, I want to leave with something that I found I can actually use, and that my time was not spent listening to someone blabber on, but the person maybe blabbered on. I hope you're not super bored, but also gave me, hey, take this, use this. And that's what I'm going to do tonight. So we're going to start by talking in detail about what NC Virtual does in Culture Cafe. We have something that I believe is just one of the many magical things about NC Virtual courses, and that is the Culture Cafe. It is a free lecture series with hour-long presentation of all types by NC Virtual World Language staff, by others outside of the NC Virtual World Language staff, but they're always about cultural, historical, gastronomic, and geographical topics from countries and cultures around the world. So the greatest part about these lectures is that they are 100% extracurricular, and they stretch learning past, present, future. They allow students to be the leaders, the lecturers. It allows students to be the guests. It is a situation that I find, I don't think there is anything better that we offer personally to truly deeply connect with students on an emotional level that allows for deep reflection. So you can take this link, and you should, and there's other links you can copy as well. But as we look through, right on our website, you will see this general description of what our Culture Cafe is. It allows for you to join, and you guys can all join. You can use this link, and I will have it on another slide, to have your students join. Would be excited to have your students in our Culture Cafes. So if there's something that you feel would benefit your students, I hope you copy paste these links, you plop them into your courses, you share with your face-to-face students, and you allow them to come learn. What are these sessions? How do they work? What's the deal? So the thing that I absolutely adore about this is the Culture Cafe is a Zoom session on your schedule when works for each teacher or student who wants to present. And it allows teachers the opportunity to discuss the things they love. The reason you became a teacher in the first place. For me, I lived in Costa Rica for a long while, and then I lived in Spain for a long while. And there are parts of both of those cultures that I identify with, that I feel defined me as a younger person. And that's why I teach Spanish. I teach Spanish because some of my best friends in the world were forged in a language that I don't speak every day. And I love to share that language with my students and the places that I've been and all of that. So Culture Cafe allows teachers to say, you know what? I just love tortilla española. It's delicious. I'm really good at making it. And I want to teach students how to do it. So I can. So you sign up, you bring that camera down to your kitchen, and you run a little session about, tortilla española is not the typical tortilla that you think about. It's different, it's this, it's that, and here's why, and here's when it's eaten, and all the things. And then you can run a whole session about how to cook it, when to make it, and what it looks like when it's all done. In our culture cafe, they're English presentations. They can be also in target language, but you do not need to speak the language to present information or attend a session focused on culture, right? So you can go, I'm a Spanish teacher. One of the most magical trips I've ever been on was a cross-country road trip that was 8 weeks long in the United States of America. I could go to teach about the Native the Native American people living in Utah that influenced me dramatically when we were there, and what I did and when I met them and how it was and what I learned, and all about the experience that I had in that situation. Or I could present about, I'm a Spanish teacher and I've been to Asia. So I want to share how, and I live in Washington, DC. So now I have a connection because of my cherry blossom trees in my yard, and the original cherry blossom trees coming from Japan. And these are all perfect topics and something that I'm passionate about. Maybe I don't need a whole lot of preparation for. It's also really, really important to North Carolina virtual public that the culture cafes are low stakes, low stress, because low stakes and low stress, as we all know as teachers, equal a lot of learning, pressure-free. And I think something that I've learned throughout my decade working for NC Virtual is, kids, we all know students are stressed, especially high school students. They're feeling the pressure of college applications and sports and scholarships and classes and all the things. And the feedback that we get semester after semester after semester is that Culture Cafe is something they deeply enjoyed, want to go to again. I have many students that go to multiple optional Culture Cafe sessions in a semester just because it's fun. In the past, teachers have given virtual tours of museums and cities, pictures, previous travel experiences, all kinds of stuff. We, like I said, recipes and cooking. I know that Sarah has done recipes where she's cooking in her kitchen and she's teaching students how to make things, and it's the coolest. So these Culture Cafe sessions allow for students to attend, learn, and then reflect. And in the past, we've had sessions from North Carolina State and UNC professor guest lecturers, partnerships from other virtual schools. Last time there was the Winter Olympics, there was a whole local orientation to Sochi. And because we've had guest lecturers from all over the world, we've even had the son of the Costa Rican president presenting. Because like I said, you're in your location, we're in our location. And students have the opportunity to learn about something that people are passionate about, that a person is passionate about. We all know that when passion shines through, the learning is easier for the students. And with the idea that we've had 10,000 student participants and over 700 presentations since 2009, these run deep. These Culture Cafe sessions have impacted thousands of students and really expanded our students' perspectives of the world, just one presentation at a time while they're sitting on their computers in North Carolina. So the hope that I have moving forward is that you guys, anybody, the ideal situation is that we have participation from you guys and that you all also take the opportunity to take advantage. Who wouldn't want their students to learn all about, the French city of Paris? When somebody passionate is going to teach it, kids can go and learn low stakes, learn a bit, and then reflect on their own culture. In our courses at NC Virtual, we have an optional assignment that can be considered extra credit. And this is what the assignment is. So after attending a culture cafe session of your choice, answer the following questions. Simple, straightforward. When did you attend? What was the topic? Who was the presenter? What did the session cover? And then a reflection on the central theme given by the teacher during the session. These are optional assignments in our courses, and students will complete multiple, like I said, multiple culture cafe sessions. And this is the type of stuff that we get. I just went to my course from last semester, copied this as an answer. I had a student submit one she went to about kanji, and this was actually Reve's presentation. My students loved this presentation. I had several students say how much they enjoyed it. And the cool part is I learn, they learn, and the reflection has them thinking about, what do they plan to do with this information in the future? How can they connect to it? I thought this was amazing. As you can see here, this is a reflection about that a student wrote about Impressionism, and specifically about a museum in France. And the best part is that in the last sentence there, she says, overall, I'm so intrigued by the central theme of the meeting that I'm going to continue reading about Impressionism on my own. This student did that, texted me separately, because I responded to her and said, I'm so impressed that you learned so much. And after I read her assignment here, I texted her separately, and she texted me back, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks later. And it was a picture of a bunch of books she got out of the library. And she was genuinely deeply intrigued and learned. And by the way, she's a Spanish student. This is a Spanish student, right? This also, the previous slide, Spanish student going to a presentation about kanji. And that's okay, because we are still affording students an opportunity to reflect on cultures from around the world and make connections to their own culture. It doesn't necessarily have to be our target language culture. This one was also fascinating. It was another one from Reve's presentation. When I saw, I said, I could not believe this. So this is a student who, look at what she learned, a Spanish student learning all of this. I mean, and enjoying it deeply, having fun with it, learning how to download different keyboards on her phone. She messaged me because she was trying to do this on her phone. Yeah, I'm so excited for you. I wish I should have shared this with you previously, Reve. But yeah, I think the simple fact that students have the opportunity, and it is an opportunity, to learn and reflect in our courses really makes a huge difference. And these are sessions that are unrelated many times to our target language culture, but that foster such an interest that they want to continue learning. And there was one about the Camino de Santiago, and I had French teachers reaching out to me as a Spanish teacher. I didn't even give the session, saying, hey, my students want more information about El Camino de Santiago. Can you send it to me? So I'm like, that's not my specialty, but I am more than happy to reach out to the person who did the presentation and send it. So it creates connections among our department and among the students in our department. So I am putting this here for you guys because I would love for you to check out the Culture Cafe webpage, like I showed you, and the Google Calendar about the upcoming events, which I want to show you because there are some really cool ones. We have stuff about Russia, Japan, Sanford Mean, all kinds of stuff about Mardi Gras. And I mean, there's just an endless number of sessions. I also want to tell you that I have brought my elementary age children to these sessions. And I have a 5-year-old, 4, almost 5-year-old, 7-year-old, and 9-year-old, and they learned all about poinsettias and what poinsettias mean and what they represent in Mexico and all kinds of stuff. And after that, every time we saw poinsettias this Christmas, my kids told the poinsettia story and taught my mom and taught my dad. and we're very proud of what they learned, and wondering, why do we have these in the United States? We aren't in Mexico. Why do we have these flowers? Do they mean the same thing here? And so that's exactly what the point of the Culture Cafe is. So I put here, your students are welcome to join our upcoming sessions, share the login, share the link with them, share the calendar with them, right? And truly let your students take advantage of all that we offer. And then if you guys have a topic you want to present on, we would absolutely love your passions, expertise, share it with the kids. You know, you can partner up with a few different teachers. We've done that too, where it's like, okay, I'm not going to talk for a whole hour on this, but I could totally do 20 or 30 minutes. And if you did 20 or 30 minutes, then boom, you've got a shared presentation. The kids are learning and loving it. And to do that, Ms. Tiffany Grant, email address right there, is the leader. She organizes it for NC Virtual, and she would welcome your messages, be thrilled to have you sign up, and it would just make us look even better. So no, but really though, this is what I mean about take something from my presentation and use it, because I do deeply believe that the Culture Cafe offers a unique opportunity for culture to be introduced and reflected on in a way that really does benefit the social and emotional learning of our students. And if your students can take advantage of it, I would love that for them. All right, so in moving on to the next little bit, we have, yeah, you're welcome. The next thing I want to talk about is something else that NC Virtual does to foster cultural connections, and that is something we call our iWork sessions. We have this really cool program. It's a guest speaker series each semester, and your students are more than welcome to take advantage of this as well. It includes presentations about career paths and jobs by professionals working in the field. So, and that's important. We all would love to share our knowledge about all sorts of things, but this particular set of the speaker series is run by professionals in the fields that they're working in and teaching students about kind of what it would be like. So sessions have been geared towards students interested in pursuing foreign language study in college, studying abroad in the past. And I think that's really great, because a lot of times high school students have this vision of what it might be like to study abroad, and they're not really sure. And this is a cool opportunity for students to learn about a career path unrelated to culture, but with our focus in mind. There have been presentations, like I said, about foreign language study in college, studying abroad. There have been sessions that have a focus on cultural perspectives in relation to the workplace, taught by UNC professors. So in that case, there's the Russian flagship program, for example, and what is the program, and how do you partner with UNC, and what does that look like in reference to kind of guiding your studies through college. And then there have also been presentations on career connections and career connection discussions led by university professors that make students aware of how they can achieve their future professional goals, as well as kind of what does it look like to be a global professional? What does that mean, working in the global world, right? So what kind of cultural program at the university level, or what kind of career path do you select based on some of the, some of the cultural information provided? So career connections, cultural connections, all focused on employment and university study. The iWork NC Virtual sessions can be found, the information can be found, oops, I don't have, let's see, the link is right here in my, I should have put it for you, I apologize. I'm gonna copy this for you guys. If you would like to have your students participate, there is also a whole bunch of information for them here. I just put it in to the chat for you. And you guys can take advantage the same way that you can of the Culture Cafe sessions. And then last, but certainly not least, we have what's called the NC Virtual Student Research Alliance. And NCVPS, the NC Virtual Public School Student Research Alliance, is a unique opportunity, and it's very unique. I've never seen anything like it for high school students to conduct original research on topics of interest related to NC Virtual courses. And it allows for students to take a course, a bit apart, a piece of a course, and then say, okay, what more can I learn about this? The goal of the program is to provide a platform for innovation and to create resources for students to deepen their understanding of specific course content, often related to cultural topics. So in our world language courses, it might be, for example, in a Spanish 4 course that I teach, there's a heavy focus on the Maya and on their number system and all of that. This would be an opportunity where a student could take and run with that particular part of my Spanish 4 course and just take it and go. In the past, there have been a math student decided that the trigonometry of blood splatter analysis was really fascinating and could tie back to some other interests that they have and connect to them deeply on their very own personal level. The immunology and biology of SARS-CoV-2 virus. So that was recently done where students in a bio class said, you know what, I want to know more. I want to learn more. I feel connected to this and this is what I want to do. And so I'm going for it. There was a project recently done on mental illnesses. Are some mental illnesses linked to others? This was a personal project, a project that was very connected to that student who took information from her course and ran with it. And then little things like how music has evolved over time, right? So in a music course, being able to say, okay, how has music evolved over time? How have things changed? And taking a detailed approach and connecting to that student who music is her thing. So it's a very organized program and something I know allows students to connect personally to their coursework on a deeper level. And that's really all I have for you. I think at this point, what I hope for, that you've gotten out of this presentation is, empathy is an important part of social and emotional development, recognizing other people, other places, other cultures, and knowing that you can connect with students on that level. And NC Virtual Supplemental Cultural Programming allows students to become more empathetic through learning about how people live and work around the world. Our programming allows for students to take information that they feel connected to and bring that into their world. So my wrap-up question is there anything that you feel is fascinating about, the culture you are teaching about, or in your target language, but that you feel kind of gets left out of your current curriculum that you could explore on a deeper level, that your students would benefit from?
Meaghan, that was fantastic. And we really appreciate you making the time to come out this evening our time and talk to us about how these sessions have such a major impact on our students. So I don't see any questions right now in our chat or in our Q&A box. As a serious facilitator, I loved seeing all the comments going back and forth in chat and all these collaborations and sharing ideas and thoughts. And that's just what makes this so much fun. And it's so great to have that kind of collaboration. So actually, on the topic of collaboration, it's great that Meaghan and also Reve and I are all the presenters here tonight. We all collaborated fairly recently on a cafe through NC Virtual, and this was on holiday traditions and celebrations. And I intentionally left it really, really open and open-ended because I wanted to draw as many educators as possible to come in. And the idea behind it was each of us would present something for maybe about 5 minutes. and just share holiday traditions. Now, these could be your holiday traditions. Maybe you're from a different country, or maybe you lived in another country and you shared these traditions, or maybe you want to talk about in one of the countries where the language you teach is spoken, maybe they've got their own holiday traditions or a special food. And that's exactly what happened. We had folks come out from Arabic, from Russian, from Spanish, from Japanese, and it was a lot of different groups coming together and sharing things. And I think that collaborative nature made it so magic for everyone, just getting in and sharing some fun things related to holiday traditions. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be that, anything, food, music, dance, just general topics, and having everybody come in and collaborate is a great way to get students involved. What was your take on that?
I totally agree. And that's why I mentioned earlier, you know, preparing an hour-long presentation or a 30-minute, I mean, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And not that there isn't a whole lot to say about cultural topics, but sometimes it's just, we have a million things going on. We all do. And to sign up for something else is just, it's too much. But in this particular culture cafe that we did, we all spoke for 5 minutes. And I know I spoke about the El Gordo, the Spanish lottery, because it was a holiday tradition in Spain. 5 minutes, showed the little commercial, boom, boom, boom. And that was my contribution. But then I learned all kinds of stuff in the time, because other teachers were sharing. And I think the students that attended were even better off because they had the opportunity to learn what kind of a little tiny tidbit of a bunch of stuff from all over the world. So that was, for me, a really cool experience. I had a lot of fun. And I know that my students who attended also really enjoyed it.
Wonderful. And kind of piggybacking off of what I said before about keeping things like origami paper at my desk, it doesn't necessarily take a long time to prepare these. I know as educators, we're very busy people. Not only do we have very demanding jobs, but we have different things going on in our lives as well. And maybe a 30 to 40-minute presentation isn't in the cards, but maybe one where you show students how to make something or create something in maybe about 5 minutes would be doable. So I want to really encourage everyone, even if your school doesn't have a program like this, think about starting your own, or alternatively, or actually come out for NC Virtual's cafes. We would love to have different presenters host different topics, and this room is no shortage of talent. So anything like that, we would warmly invite you to join us at the NC Virtual Cafe.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. I hope that you leave tonight with the opportunity to take advantage of what we have, or come up with something similar, or make a version of kind of what we got going on at NC Virtual.